I'd love to dive into Inflazome. I know we don't have that much time, but I would love to hear the origins of that company and sort of some of the large key events that led it to be acquired for a decent sum of 380 million is the public figure.
Yeah,
What,
that's right.
what's the story there?
So that's, I mean, it's a good story. It's a success now. I'm happy to talk about success. So, all my career, I've tried to find novel anti-inflammatory drugs. That's been a key mission for me all the way along. In fact, I began working on things like aspirin and Nurofen back in the 80s. Can you believe it? And they're anti-inflammatory. And
Yeah,
lo and behold, in the year 2012, it began really. We've stumbled into a very potent anti-inflammatory molecule. It blocks the thing called NLRP3. Now, NLRP3 is a very important master switch for inflammation. It gets pushed over in all these inflammatory diseases. NLRP3 gets overactive. We've got a few ideas why that would be. A good example is Parkinson's disease, to be honest, because in that disease, a protein called alpha-synuclein builds up in your brain. And that drives inflammation and that damages the brain. And NLRP3 is there to cause the inflammation. So it's been kicking around for a while and we found a way to block it. And then we formed a company, Inflazome, in 2016 to develop molecules that could really potently block it, which we did. The original molecule, Evan, was a Pfizer molecule. The drug company Pfizer owned it actually. And they had an anti-inflammatory, didn't know what it did. All my lab did was show up like NLRP3. That was the add-on that we made. But that was never optimum. We optimized Pfizer's drug, and then we get to 2020, and then we say, look, we got to develop this further. And we couldn't raise enough money to go into clinical trials. That's a lot of money. And luckily, Roche bought us, the big Swiss company Roche, and they're now in the clinic with 3 diseases. And as we speak, there's people with Parkinson's on our drugs being tested in them. So it's a good
incredible.
example of a thing that began in my lab in Trinity, the search for anti-inflammatories, picking that target. I had the insight to go, oh, let's block this thing. This thing looks
Yeah,
interesting. Let's see if we can find a way to block it. I knew the guys in Pfizer anyway, and then we got it going. And then I met a chemist at a conference from Brisbane. He began making molecules, his lab, and we ended up with these really potent molecules. I mean, it sounds somewhat straightforward. It was very difficult, of course, to
yes,
raise money. We raised 40 million in investment. Now, our investors got the lion's share of the 380 because that's what happens.
yeah,
The investors want to be getting a 6, 7-fold return on their investment, remember?
yeah,
That's the way
yeah,
venture capital works. My university made loads of money. They were shareholders. It was great. Trinity made a bit of money from it. I made all the employees made a bit, including myself. So we all benefited from financially. The other bit that people are amazed by, Evan, is the Irish taxpayer made loads of money because the Irish government were investing in Inflazome through a venture capital fund called Fountain, if you know what I mean. There's a thing of the Irish Strategic Investment Fund. They
yeah,
gave money to Fountain, Fountain gave money to us, and they got a divvy from the money as well. So it's
yeah.
great. I think they
Oh,
made
it's
about 60
incredible.
million in the end, went back to the exchequer. So everybody won financially, especially the investors. Although that's understandable. But most importantly for me personally, I'm now got a drug in patients.
Yeah.
That hasn't worked yet, remember. And there's many things fail. It can be very difficult to get things through. But now we're in clinical trials. Let's see what happens next. So it's a wonderful, exciting time for us. If it works, you can imagine. If we can slow down Parkinson's,
It's
it's going to
history
be huge.
making.
Now,
It's
again, remember, it's probably not going to work. Many things don't work at this stage, so don't hold your breath. But still, at least we're in the clinic testing it. So let's hope it
yeah.
works out.
No, it's absolutely fantastic and huge congratulations. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I what I did, I graduated neuroscience in Trinity and then I went and ran a startup. So I built
Oh
my own
yeah,
language learning
very good.
startup for 4 years. That's what I did
Ah
right out of
yeah,
college. I started a company called Weave where we were building AI
right,
technologies for language learning in my final year. So that's
great.
why I was
Yeah,
very interested in hearing the Inflazome story because I
yeah. Well,
spent
you know what it's like then. I mean,
countless
yeah.
hours pitching to venture
Well, it
capitalists
was
trying to raise
back in the
money.
end, endless pitches. I mean, to write the initial raise wasn't that bad. I knew the guys in Fountain from before, and that was okay. Second round investment had to be argued for. The big effort was trying to sell it to a big drug company. We made
Yes,
loads of presentations to all the big drug
I'm
companies,
sure.
and many passed on. I said, "No, we don't want this. We don't like the look of it, or whatever it is."
Yeah,
Thankfully, Roche stepped up at the end, which was great for us, really. And I could have
yeah,
fallen over. As you know, it's very uncertain. So now I had
absolutely.
a few failures along the way as well with other companies. So
You
but,
always
but
do.
as you know, Stephen, perseverance is your friend in this situation. If you really believe in it, you got to keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely. What do you think some of the key differences between a biotech startup and a normal startup are? Like, I think it's not particularly clear sometimes when someone reads the headline, Roche buys Inflazome for a
Yeah,
crazy boatload of cash. It's not clear
yeah,
what they're actually buying. So like what explain some of those key differences maybe between our company that was developing a language learning product, selling it
All
directly to
right.
customers, and then a research lab that discovered a
Yeah.
drug and then was bought by a larger company.
Well, they bought the drugs. We made a number of molecules, like real molecules,
Yeah.
and they bought two of our drugs. The price was for two chemicals. Can you believe it? Even these
Yeah.
structures. Now we patents on them, obviously. Nobody
Yeah.
else can make them, and those patents go out for 20 years. They bought two molecules for that amount of money. I mean, it always amazes me how a single molecule can cost you billions, this kind of thing. But of course,
Yeah.
the value of this is if it gets into Parkinson's, they're going to make billions out of the drug, remember, as well. So that's the other end of it. So they
Yeah.
bought the two drugs, that's it. And then they also have all the data around them, obviously. We'd loads of work. We'd done lots of stuff on them. We'd done a phase 1 trial in humans, actually, already, and it was safe. We'd done lots of testing of various kinds to show it should work and all that kind of thing. So there was a data pack. So they bought the two drugs backed by loads of data, and that's what they bought in the end. So it's straightforward at one level.
Yeah.
You're right, though. The biotech business is highly risky, though. Remember, I think that the risk profile is much higher in biotech than it is in ICT, for instance.
Yeah.
Like in ICT, they're just making widgets, aren't they, or something, or whatever it is. Not to demean them, but we're dealing with complex human biology here. You're trying to figure out these very complex diseases, so it's high risk. It's a
Yeah.
riskier proposition for biotech, really.
It seems crazy when you're building a technology product, what you're doing is you're launching it basically every week. You're updating it, you're building a slightly different
Yeah.
thing. With a biotech company, you kind of have to bet the kitchen sink on a clinical trial at some point. You have
You
to
do.
reach a
It's right.
certain level of confidence and just say, right, we're betting basically like I don't know many companies you probably only maybe get 2 or 3 rounds maximum at a clinical trial. Like it's a huge risk. Is
It
is
is
that
huge.
is that correct?
But you need the big drug companies because they've got deep pockets, remember.
Yeah.
And each trial is costing them 100 million at the moment, for instance, in cash. It's cost to run the trial.
Yeah.
And the success rate might be 10-20% from that. It's incredible. So you need to go to the big ones. And the good news is, I suppose, in general, is big drug companies do reinvest their profits in more medicines, remember, and pay for this stuff. And then, of course, many fail. So you need those deep pockets to run these trials, and that's why you need the big drug. We couldn't have raised that amount of money with venture anymore. It was too much.
Yeah.
So hence the model, as we call it, is you get bought, acquired. You can go public though sometimes and raise money that way. But in general terms of biotech, you get acquired by one of the big companies as the model,
Yeah. Yeah. Like in tech, you get acquired by Google or Amazon, the larger technology companies who want to integrate you into their tech stack in some way.
Yeah.
Important part of the ecosystem.
They know what they're doing, remember. They've developed loads of drugs. They can do the trials. They can do all the necessary safety checks and all these kinds of things. So you're with the right people.
Yeah, it's an amazing success story, and I wish those clinical trials success. I'll be following them, and hopefully we can get on the podcast again and discuss the results because that would be incredible.
Can you imagine? I mean, again, I'm on TED Talks. I hate talking about it, even though I'm a scientist. I don't put the mockers on it. You never know. I get superstitious. We'll see. Actually, to be honest, 3 of my drugs are in the clinic at the moment.
Yeah.
The Inflazome one of another company called Citrix. They've got a molecule in the clinic, and a second molecule about to go in the clinic. So I'm going to have 3 separate drugs with different. Surely one by the laws of averages,
Because each of those molecules has got to feel like a child, like when you start a business, like you put so much emotion, tears, capital, energy, everything into them. It's a child.
It's a child, and you're scared for the child in the big bad world. It's that kind of thing,
Of course, absolutely. If you enjoyed that short podcast clip, then I'm so confident you will enjoy even more the full conversation. You can click it here. Click it. Come on. You know you want to. Click it. Click it.